had written this thing that I wanted to like. I was like, oh, I should pitch it and try to get a thing, and instead I just wrote the check and shot it. Yeah.
That's got to be pretty sick when you can do shit like
It
that.
was pretty cool. I mean, it was cool. It was not cool to get that sick. I got sick, but yeah. If you like, so we're gonna actually go make a series of it now.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you're probably at the point where that's gonna go to series.
Yeah, we're
Like,
gonna go to series. With
anything
it.
you do is gonna work.
Yeah. Well, I don't know,
Well,
but I mean,
but like the executives or whoever you need to convince are gonna go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do
yeah,
it. Right?
like they're taking a chance, I guess. But but this is like, yeah. I mean, I literally was like, I go to shoot this thing. We shot it in the LA area, so some of it was like in Simi Valley, some of it was in LA, some was in Long Beach, and then I have to leave the set while it's still shooting because I have a gig in Bakersfield. And when I get to the airport, they're like, something wrong with the plane. And I was like, and I'm sick, and I'm like, and I have 2 shows in Bakersfield, and I'm coming from the set, and I was like, how do I get to Bakersfield? And they're like, we can take a helicopter. And I was like, all right. So we get in the helicopter, and because of like the altitude, adjustment and I'm congested, one of my ears just goes, and I just can't hear. And I'm like, and so I get to the venue, and I'm like, what's up, man? Like, I'm talking to people, and they're like, why are you talking so loud? And I was like, I can't hear. I can't hear.
Oh my god!
And it was so, my hearing was so gone that I lost my ability. I forgot the rhythm to pause. So I was like, da 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 da. I just kept talking, and people were like, you need to slow down, man. Because
Segura's got a coke problem.
Yeah, I was like,
finish a set in 20 minutes.
I couldn't like figure out where to, like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't
Holy
hear. I couldn't
shit.
hear applause, laughter. I couldn't hear anything happening. Like, it
That's
was just,
crazy.
Yeah.
Because that's weird when something happens to one thing and you realize like you would never think like that.
Without
like,
that,
your understanding of conversation or performance really is that based on hearing. He's like, I'm doing the talking. Everyone shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no.
But like you need
that's
every
like
sense possible.
the comedian's version of like I played with a fucking
Yeah.
stinger in my neck.
Playing sick or doing like stand up, especially with like head cold stuff. There's a weird thing that happens when you have stomach stuff, which is awful. I think the worst, where like your body will like,
It knows to pause.
Yeah, it, like, pauses.
I've kind of felt that before too.
and it also like you get through the head stuff, but the head stuff, as soon as you get off, is so much worse.
Yeah.
Like you're then it just kind of like the
drains.
adrenaline drops.
Again, the very tiny little shows we do, I get off stage and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gassed. I can't imagine doing.
Yeah, gas. People
You
think
know?
it's the they're like, you must be energized. I'm like,
No,
not
I
energized.
just put it all out there.
Yeah.
You know?
No, you're done. You're
That-
done. Yeah.
I
can't
remember
even
thinking that,
imagine
like,
what
I think it was actually Kim Kardashian had a post where it was like, this is what rock star life actually is. And it was like Kanye asleep on the couch. This is back when they were
Yeah.
married or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And then
sense.
again, we'll do like a 300-person show. And I'm like, no one talked to me for 24 hours. Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it a steady enough like rise for you, or like did you jump quick to like a big theater and a big?
No, I had the best rise.
Yeah,
I had the way you want to do it.
because it was like
Slow and steady.
Yeah.
Clubs, to adding shows in a club, to rock club, to small theater, to mid-sized theater, to large theater, and then I did a dozen arenas, a few amphitheaters. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
everything I just described is
whole
10
career.
years.
Yeah.
10 years of selling tickets.
Right.
And it was literally every tour was a bump. Like
Yeah.
the bump to the next one,
which is perfect.
it's the way to do it.
I can't even imagine some of the guys now when you go rocket speed. Like, how
some
do
of
you
the-
know?
You
how to-
don't?
you don't. I mean, you're going from like I'm like begging to get up on stage to like I can do an arena. How the fuck do you do that?
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't. And honestly, even if you're,
But you can't say no, right?
well, you can.
I mean,
You can if
would
you're
you?
like. I think the check. You go like, wait a minute, but you're much better off. Here's the thing: you don't realize it's a real. It's an adaptation you have to do.
Yeah.
To go. I mean, there's like there's guys that go high school to MBA.
Right, right.
But like that 1 year in college helps,
A lot,
right?
yeah.
And
But I would be so afraid, just like, you probably can rest assured, like I will still get to arenas if people like me, but I don't know.
yes,
What if-
because here's
what
the
if
thing:
the market
you don't
changes. What if
plan.
the-
I remember we were talking about arenas like Bert and I were like 10 years ago, like, and then I go, yeah, but there's no like path. You don't go,
Yeah.
let's follow this path to arenas. What you do is you just do like what you do.
You hope
And
it gets
then,
there.
yeah, you just kind of
Yeah.
deal with whatever the benefits of, the upside of that. Like, so doing stand up, you just kind of go, okay, like here's my stand up, right? And then the response is the response. But the first time you do a theater, it's definitely a change than a club.
Right.
And honestly, a big theater is almost like a half arena.
Yeah.
Like a 5,000 seater,
experience.
that's basically
Yeah.
half an arena.
Right.
That's way different than a 1,500 seater. I mean, way different.
Yeah.
And then you get to arenas and it's like, it's a whole different thing.
I would have thought like a show's a show, whatever. And I saw a show at the Beacon fairly recently that had some comics on it who are typically club guys and had some comics on it who are typically theater guys. And it was, for the first time ever to me, like so jarringly different. It was like, oh, like so-and-so is talking to the not talking to the balcony, but projecting to the balcony and looking up here and engaging.
You see it.
Whereas everyone else is kind of like just working the front row right there at a club. And it was like, oh, yeah, this is pretty clear who regularly does theaters and who
1,000%.
clubs.
When I did, the first time I did, do you remember the Oddball?
No.
Oddball Festival was, I think, Live Nation's like comedy festival.
Okay.
It was massive for a run. I think they stopped doing it. It's like kind of like what Bert's kind of doing now is what Oddball was.
Okay.
Right. And they did amphitheaters, like big fucking amphitheaters. And they would have a bunch of comics and then like your headlining comics. Like, so one year it was Louis, one year it was Schumer, one year it was Sebastian. Like, so they always had like a big, but like all the comics on it were like pretty known, So it was like 2015 or 16. I'm doing it like a dozen, 15 of them or something, like a bunch of them. And there's comics that come and go. So I'm like, when I'm doing enough shows where I kind of am like, I'm on a lot of the shows and I'm seeing people come to do a couple and then leave and then another person comes. And it became a thing. Like when I did my first one, Jeff Ross, I was like, yeah, what's this going to be like? He's like, take your time, like slow down. And I don't even remember if he's the one that told me, but I learned that like you stick to do your material, right? Because like, you go to like a club, it's like, what's up, man?
Yeah.
This shit. And if you have that kind of energy, but I'd see people show up
Try to do that.
and they try to be like loose, like da da da, and you would see them flounder. I mean, sweat.
Well, think about it,
right?
if you're 5,000 people away, you're top row.
20,000.
Yeah, right.
There's
right.
20,000 people at some of
I
these
don't give a
shows,
fuck about the guy in the,
and some of them, like you could see them come off, and they're like, right, and you're like, and you go like, yeah, but you're doing your like cellar set,
that's not,
like you're kind of like working there. I go, you're not working this room,
right.
You go out there and just perform your 20 best minutes.
Yeah.
Like actually
Don't talk
put
to
on
anybody.
a show.
Yeah.
Like do the show. And as soon as people would do that, some people would show up and they just knew. They just do that.
Fine.
Murder. They would murder because the crowd wants to have a good time.
Yeah.
But the people who would just kind of like try to like,
This is not a big deal. This is not different.
Here's a little off the cuff thing over here. Like it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.